Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Bright Spots, a weekly show highlighting organizations and individuals who are shining a light in our community and our world. I hope you have had a great day. My name is Laurie Labishak, and I'm your host this evening for Bright Spots. I am a self proclaimed happiness ambassador, and I want to share happiness with you tonight with our special guest and with a little bit of chatter. So we invite you to join us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Send us a message right below so that we know you're here. And also, let us know where you're tuning in from and if this is your first time joining us. Again, this is Laurie Labishak and this is Bright Spots. We do hope that you will enjoy this evening's show. But before we get to our guest, I'd like to talk a little bit about something positive that has come out of the pandemic. You know, each week when I come on, I like to talk about a little something. And there have been some positive things in the pandemic. And I'd love to hear from you something positive that you've experienced or something that you've noticed that is different now because of the pandemic. So here is what I'm going to talk about tonight. I love a bargain. How about you? Do you love a bargain? Boy, I sure do. And today I got the bargain of a lifetime. I'll tell you what, I cannot believe the bargain that I got today. So, as many of you know, my parents live in North Carolina, and to get to them, I fly into Myrtle Beach a good bit because it's about an hour from where they are. And usually you can get decent flights around $100 round trip. Sometimes, $150, which isn't bad if you think about it. That's not a bad price to fly down to North Carolina. Today, I booked a flight to North Carolina. Wait for it, $50 round trip. $50 round trip. Now, come on, really? That's crazy, isn't it? And they're still making money. But that's one of those positives that have come out of the pandemic because folks are not traveling. The demand is not there. So the airlines want to, fill seats on the planes. Some people have asked me if I'm afraid to travel. I'm not afraid to travel. I believe we follow the precautions that the government has set in place for us. I will wear a mask as I travel, and I will go straight from the airport into my parents' car and to their home and then back again. And we may go, a few places, but no different than what I would do here in Ohio. So I don't think it's any more dangerous or any less dangerous, I guess, than being right here at home. And we have to be with our folks for as long as we have them. And I am blessed to have both my parents still, and I miss them. I haven't seen them since December, so I can't wait to spend a little bit of time with them and put my arms around them. So that is my positive pandemic story for today. Tell me yours. I truly would love to know your pandemic positivity. If you have some out there, share it with us anytime during the broadcast this evening. Again, just put it in the comments below, and I'd love to hear about it. So, my guest this evening is Karen Haught. Karen is the executive director of the Seeing Hand in Wheeling, West Virginia. And I think that I may have just lost Karen on the broadcast, so I'll keep talking until she comes back. Oh, there she is. She's back. I see her now. Okay, so will you please help me welcome Karen Haught to the Bright Spots studio. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Lori. I lost your sound and then I lost you completely. So I'm hoping we don't have any issues here. My internet's working, but thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Well, it is so good to have you, Karen. I'm just thrilled to have my friends from Wheeling joining me on Bright Spots every once in a while. So, Karen, for the folks who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I've been the executive director of the Seeing Hand for about 8 years. Prior to that, you may know my maiden name is Guerrero. I spent about 26 years in the music business. So that was a great ride, but a few years ago I had to change and I decided to try the nonprofit world. In between, I worked at the symphony as a youth orchestra manager, and I also taught music at Country Day. So I've had a lot of fun things to do, and I really like helping the disabled workers.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, this show was born out of the pandemic and actually right in the middle of the quarantine and the stay at home order. So, one of the questions that I like to ask my guests is, did the quarantine change you? And if so, how?
Oh, it changed me a lot. At first, it was a ton of anxiety because my daughter was due to have a baby, as I told you earlier. So it was all about keeping safe. But then at some point, you realized that you had to learn to coexist. Now, it did change as far as business related, how we did business for a while. On March 15th, we shut down, and my operations manager, Teresa Kurtz, and I continued to work from home. And also we have some programs that we sell some things, which I'll talk about in a little while, but we met customers at the side door. But I wanted to keep my disabled workers extremely safe. We have a workshop where we have blind and visually impaired people employed. And so we had to shut that down, which was very hard for them because for most of them, other than being at home and coming to work, they don't do a lot of activities. But we brought them back in on July 6th with some very safe precautions in place, stations and masks and sanitation. So it definitely changed the way we work, our attitudes. I don't think a year ago any of us thought about, is it safe to go around someone, or is it safe to go into work, or is it safe to go into the grocery store? But it's been a learning curve, and I think we've all adapted pretty well.
So, what was the biggest challenge for you with the stay at home order and working from home?
Well, obviously, getting up every day and getting dressed and getting out of the house makes you feel motivated. So, probably the biggest challenge was getting into a schedule that flowed with a work routine. I did it many days in sweatpants and t-shirts, but that was probably the biggest challenge. The other challenge was trying to maintain some sense of business. We have a showroom and we're open, and we have some products and some services that we provide. And it was very difficult to try to continue what we did there from home.
And, a lot of people transitioned to virtual meetings and using Zoom and other WebEx and, being online more. Was that something that you also did with your team from the Seeing Hand? And was that something you were open to? Had you confessed earlier that you were not real technologically savvy. Do you think that you have grown technologically over the pandemic? Could that be one of your pandemic positives?
Well, yes, I've learned options. My workers, I have not done Zoom with them. However, the Seeing Hand is a United Way agency. We've had many Zoom meetings through United Way. Probably the most significant Zoom meeting that we are having is we have a camp every summer called Camp Independence, and it's a week camp that we have children come and they stay at a dorm, and of course we had to cancel that. So we are currently working with DRS, which is the Department of Rehabilitative Services, to put together a virtual online camp for their clients. So this Saturday we have a Zoom meeting all day from 10 to 4:30. It's called a virtual trip to employment, and it's going to be talking about resume building and employment opportunities and self-advocacy. And all of these folks are between the ages of 14 and 21 and blind and visually impaired. So I'm a little stressed about it because there's several people that are going to attend, but I'm very, very grateful for the technology to be able to do something like this.
Yeah, it has really brought us together when the world was trying to push us apart. Last week on the Bright Spots, Pastor Cummings from down in Wheeling talked about how socially distancing probably isn't what we should be doing. We should be physically distancing, but keeping that social connection. And I'm sure that that has been challenging for the individuals that your mission serves. So for the folks who are not familiar with the Seeing Hand, tell us, what does the Seeing Hand do? How did it get started? And, how many folks do you serve? Give us kind of your in a nutshell, the story behind the Seeing Hand.
Okay, well, I find that some folks are familiar with us and a lot of folks don't know what we do. And fortunately, if you don't have somebody in your family that's blind or visually impaired, you may not need us. So it was incorporated, the Seeing Hand was incorporated in 1945 out of the need to serve blind and visually impaired individuals. Back then, there were a lot more people. Thank goodness there's not as many blind people and visually impaired. But we are one of only 2 agencies in the state of West Virginia that serve that very specific need. A statistic is that 70% of blind and visually impaired are unemployed. 70% are unemployed. If they have an additional disability, such as hearing impairment or cognitive, then 90% of them are employed. So it is a challenge for them to find work. That's our biggest mission. If you were blind and visually impaired and wanted somewhere to work, we would find something for you to do. We do other things. In our workshop, we refurbish fire extinguishers, which we sell for income. We cane chairs. But we also have a lot of other programs. If you were blind or visually impaired, you probably can't go to a gym or the wellness center because 1, transportation is a problem, and 2, once you're there, it's going to be difficult to get around. So we have various programs such as recreation. Now, right now it's on hold because of the pandemic, but we have a bowling team. We have once a week exercise classes. The workers that work there actually get paid to go to the exercise classes, so they love that. But we have additional blind and visually impaired people that come in for them. We have a support group. So if you were losing your sight, you can imagine that it's very scary. We have a group of people, again, it's on hold, but we used to have it the last Wednesday of every month. They would come in, they sit down, they talk about their challenges, their successes, their fears, and it's very, very helpful. Outreach and education is a huge part of our mission. That's where we reach most of the people. We reach over 8,500 people a year when the health fairs and the student fairs and the things like that are in session. We go out, we give out information on healthy diet for eyes. We give out eye safety information for children. We give out information on glaucoma and things like that. We can do pressure reading. We do that in high rises. So we have a lot of services. And then probably, I mentioned camp, which is our shining star. And probably something that most of you don't know is we actually have a vertical garden on Wheeling Island. 6 years ago, the Edelman family, he was an accountant in Wheeling. They gifted a lot to us. And we researched it and figured out a way to take our blind and visually impaired workers to the garden, which is an incredible task and accomplishment for them because it's frightening, first of all. And second of all, they don't get to do those kinds of things. So we've taught them to harvest, water. We've taught them to cook. We give them recipes for it. They get to take produce home. And probably our brightest accomplishment is last year we entered them in the Ohio County Fair. And between the 2 of them that regularly went to the garden, they got 7 ribbons and a little bit of cash. So it was super exciting.
Well, that is great. It does sound like you're doing incredible work with the visually impaired. And so let's talk about the visually impaired during the pandemic. What do you believe is the hardest struggle for those that are visually impaired in this new normal that we have? What do you see that they are struggling the most with?
Probably the isolation and also getting around and keeping things clean and safe. If you think about a visually impaired person, for instance, when they enter our building upstairs, they have to touch a lot of surfaces. We actually adapted. We're in the process of building wooden handrails to help them to get to their stations. But I would definitely say that isolation of not seeing people, our workers rely on us, like I said, for the bowling, for going to the garden, to seeing their coworkers, to coming to work. Some of them ride public transportation, which is, a little bit of a concern. But then the other thing is navigating is always difficult. And when they tell you to try to not touch surfaces as a blind and visually impaired person, that's just next to impossible.
So, folks, if you are just tuning in, this is Bright Spots, a weekly show highlighting organizations and individuals who are shining their light in our community and around the world. Our guest this evening is the Executive Director of the Seeing Hand in Wheeling, West Virginia, an organization that supports and helps educate and find employment for those who are visually handicapped. If you are interested in learning more about this organization, they do have a website, and it is Seeing Hand, help me out here, Seeing Hand Organization, is that right?
Seeing Hand Association.
SeeingHandAssociation.com. And that's what you are seeing on the screen now is some of the website. And if you scroll to the top of the website, you will also find a Find Us on Facebook button. So you can go and check them out on Facebook and find out all of the wonderful things that they are doing in our community. So, Karen, what areas do you serve? If I'm watching and I live outside the area, what is your scope of coverage with your services?
Well, with the Zoom meeting that we're doing on Saturday, we have participants from all over the entire state. So, you're not limited there. But on a day-to-day normal operation, we serve the 5 most northern counties in West Virginia: Hancock, Brooke, Ohio, Marshall, Wetzel. We have gone down to Tyler. And then Jefferson, Belmont, and Guernsey in Ohio. That's not to say if you lived in Monroe County and you needed help, if you could get to us, we would help you. We're not limiting anybody that we serve. And I might want to add, other than orientation and mobility and a few low vision devices, every single service we provide is free to the blind and visually impaired.
Is there an age range of the individuals that you see that are seeking services with you?
Well, mostly the folks we see are elderly. Macular degeneration is the largest visual impairment that we see. However, last year I had a mother call me that had a 1-year-old that has vision problems. She actually held a fundraiser for us last October. So the youngest person that has come into our agency and we formed a connection with was 1. And I've recently had people that were in their 90s. So there's not a limit to age.
Wow, what a spread, right? That's awesome. So you said that they held a fundraiser for us. Tell us a little bit about how the Seeing Hand is funded and how individuals watching this evening in the community might be interested and might be able to support the Seeing Hand. How would we go about that?
Well, thank you for asking. As with all nonprofits, funding is a difficult challenge. If I had unlimited money, I could do all kinds of things, but obviously that's not the case for too many people. So grants, donations, fundraisers, which fundraisers have pretty much had to been put on hold. We're trying to do a virtual race, which we can talk about in a little while. We are blessed. Miss Ellikin, and she is a name that is really known around this valley. She was the executive director of the Seeing Hand for 50 years. And she worked very, very hard with a lot of people to set up an endowment. So we get partial funding from our endowment each month, which a lot of nonprofits don't have that. So we are very, very blessed. So a scope of fundraising, donations, endowment, and also we have some things that we sell. We sell fire extinguishers, we recane chairs, and we sell mops and brooms.
Okay. And if I'm in the community and I want to help, how can I do that?
Well, we always can use volunteers. That's probably the thing that we're missing terribly with the pandemic, because every year this garden brings us alone over 100 volunteers. Usually we have somewhere between 150 and 160 volunteers each year. This year, obviously, that's cut back, but the garden, it's still possible to volunteer in because it's easy to distance yourself in the garden. We've had people come in and answer the phones. We've had people come in and do filing for us. So there's all kinds. United Way has a day of caring, which we always get volunteers they've painted. The lady last year that had the 1-year-old, she actually held a fundraiser for us. Now, that's not the norm. People don't normally hold a fundraiser for you, but that was very much appreciated, and it was really, really helpful.
So tell us about that fundraiser. What did she do? In case folks have an idea of doing a fundraiser for you, what was that fundraiser like?
Well, she rides horses, and she just recently got a job as a trainer for horse therapy somewhere in Pennsylvania. But she did a fundraiser called Saddle Up for Sight, and she brought in a professional trainer to work with people who rode horses, and they did different maneuvers and things. And she charged a fee, and she had raffles and things. And then we were the beneficiary of the event, which was very, very, very grateful for them. It was very kind of them. It was a nice event. I went. It was fun.
Awesome. Did you get on a horse?
Not that day, but I'd love to get on horses. I would have, but I wasn't in the competition. They were actually like competing a little bit too. I wasn't.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. All right. So, folks, if you're tuning in, please drop us a line. Let us know you're here. Say hello, where you're tuning in from. Whether you're tuning in live or on the replay, we would love to know that you were here. And let us know if you have any questions for Miss Karen Haught, the Executive Director of the Seeing Hand in Wheeling, West Virginia. You are tuning into Bright Spots, a weekly show that highlights individuals who are shining their light in our community and around the world. It is time now for our commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Thank you.
Boy, when that music's playing, I can't help but kind of dance in my chair a little bit. The name of that song is Walk the Dog. I don't know why it's called that, but that is the name of it. So I hope you enjoy that music. And I hope you'll tune in and see some of our upcoming guests next week and the following few weeks after Bright Spots. So tonight our guest is Karen Haught of the Seeing Hand in Wheeling, West Virginia. She is the executive director and has been in that role for some time. And you may have seen Karen at a Guerrero's music store prior to that, as her maiden name is Guerrero, and she did spend a lot of years helping kids get instruments and help bring beautiful music into the world. So do you play an instrument, Karen, or many?
I play some a little bit, but I play piano as my instrument.
Yeah. Okay, good. And
our church choir, and I tell you what, without having choir at the pandemic, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Not being able to sing is truly, truly hard. It really is. And I still sing. Leave my mask on, I guess, and sing, right? So let's talk a little bit about nonprofits in general. So you get your funding from grants and from fundraisers and from donations and your endowment. You said you have a fundraiser coming up. You're going to try to do a virtual race. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's called Move for Sight. My assistant, Teresa, did some research and found that virtual races online are popular right now. So for the month of September, we're challenging you, if you're a runner or a jogger or a biker, because we just said move. It can be any way that you want, to join us and commit to moving 100 miles the month of September. And you can log your progress. if you get on our Facebook page, the event is posted and you can register there. It's only $25. You get a t-shirt and a participation. I think it's a medal. But it should be fun. Now, for me, I don't move quite as often, so 100 miles is a huge challenge. I tried to talk her to turn it into 50 miles, but she said no. 100 miles was what most people do. So it equates to about 3 miles a day. And if you don't complete the challenge, it's not a problem. You just log your progress, and it's just a fun way to try to do something we've never done before and maybe raise a little money to support our programs.
And how does one join the challenge? Is the information on your Facebook page?
The information is on our Facebook page, and then there's a link there to register.
And okay, and after this evening's show, we will also put it in the comments below.
Yeah, and then once you register, it's my understanding you just log. Like,
okay,
you tell them
all right
at the end of the month.
Well, that sounds like a cool way to kind of transition your fundraising. What are some of the fundraisers you do when it's not a pandemic?
Yeah, we have a lot of fundraisers. Our largest fundraiser supports our Camp Independence, which I told you we had to postpone for this year. But every October, we normally have a steak fry at the Italian American Club, and it's our largest fundraiser of the year. And 100% of that goes towards supporting our camp. And it's really, really fun. And we have a meal and probably 60 baskets for the auction, and then a DJ. But some of our other fundraisers that we like a lot, we had dueling pianos. I don't know if you know Hermie and Harry, but they're from Pittsburgh. Hermie played with B.E. Taylor Band forever. They do a great job. It's really fun. And we were supposed to do that in May, and then we rescheduled it for September, and now it's postponed till next March, I believe. But we have had comedy night in the past. And then a fundraiser that we will still have this year is we have a Christmas tree raffle every December, and we have about $500 worth of gift cards that are hung all over a miniature Christmas tree that one winner wins about 10 days before Christmas. So it's really, really fun. And if you win it, you pretty much have your Christmas taken care of.
Wow. I need to get in on that one. So keep me posted when those fundraisers are coming up. So how do you think the pandemic is going to change not just the Seeing Hand, but nonprofits in general and the way they fundraise? Do you see things going more virtually, or do you think we will eventually get back to the in-person fundraising?
Well, that's a big question. We all want to get back to being with groups of people, not even just fundraising, just going out with friends and having a good time. Realistically, when this started in February, March, we thought, it's just going to be over in a few months. And now it's going on and on. So I do think that it's going to be necessary for nonprofits to get creative in their fundraising. And for now, it seems online is going to have to be what it is. I think it's going to be difficult. Our fundraisers were not huge fundraisers. We might make a couple thousand, up to our steak fry might make 5,000, but for us. But there are other organizations that have postponed fundraisers that they might make $25,000 for. Those kinds are going to be very difficult to do online. Fortunately, you're limited just to your creativity. I mean, whatever you can come up with to do online is probably what you're going to have to do in the near future.
So we might see a dueling pianos between. We might see a dueling pianos between you and Hermie. Have you lost audio?
Gotcha now. There you go.
Okay. We might see a dueling pianos between you and Hermie?
Not between Hermie and me. Harry and Hermie are way, way, way more talented than I am. I mean, we could maybe do one, but I don't know if you've ever seen them, but
we've seen them at Towngate. Yes, we have.
Total joy. I love those guys. They're fun and they're talented, and it's just a really good evening.
Yeah, they are a lot of fun. I agree. So When we think about as we're slowly reopening, I feel like we started to reopen and then things got a little wonky. So we pulled back and now we have this mandatory masking when we go out in public, both in West Virginia and Ohio. Um, what do you think is our biggest challenge as we start to reopen? And especially, how do you believe that's going to impact the individuals that your organization serves?
I think the biggest challenge is making sure that we stay safe. And I don't want to get into a mask debate here, but it just seems like, everybody's divided on the mask. And with it being a mandate, we have decided at our organization, if you don't have a mask, you can't enter the building. Now, that doesn't mean we won't serve you. Say you want to buy a broom or you need a fire extinguisher. If you're not comfortable with a mask, we will take your order over the phone and we will set it outside at the side door. So we're trying to be as accommodating as possible. But everybody in my building, other than probably two people, I believe are in at-risk group. We're older, underlying conditions. So as the director, I worry very, very much about everyone. So I'm just trying to do everything that I can to keep them safe. And long term, if everybody would do that for a little while, it would be wonderful. Maybe we could see some progress. But until safety precautions are put in place everywhere, it's going to be difficult to make progress.
How many people do you employ there at the Seeing Hand?
We're small. We only have 9.
Okay.
We had more, but we had someone pass away. We have someone on medical leave. We had someone retire. We had someone move. So there, life changes. We're not really actively looking for more people at this time because the timing is difficult, but we always want to try to expand the people that work, the visually impaired and disabled workers that work there. If you want to work right now and you're visually impaired, call us and we'll try to figure something out.
And you mentioned that you have a storefront where you sell the brooms and the other items. What is the location of your storefront?
We're at 750 Main Street. We're right across from where Uncle Pete's used to be, cat a corner from the fire station in North Wheeling.
Okay.
Yeah, we our biggest project is we refurbish fire extinguishers, and we took this project on 3 years ago. It's been a challenge. I mean, let me tell you, there are many sleepless nights trying to get it up and running, but it's a great service. Excuse me. Everybody needs one for their home and office. Right now, you may see our billboards scattered out around the community. We have a grant that was funded for some marketing for them. Um, and we sell brooms and we make mops that we also sell, and we cane chairs. Now, I would have never dreamed how many people get chairs recaned, but it's a big part of what we do. It's
Wow.
quite the skill. I would never have the patience to do it.
So, folks, if you are just tuning in, this is Laurie Labishak with Bright Spots, and our guest this evening is Karen Haught of the Seeing Hand in Wheeling. And I think probably one of the most interesting things that we've talked about this evening, for me anyways, is the vertical garden. And for those folks that are just tuning in, could you tell us a little bit more about the vertical garden? What kind of produce do you grow, and how is that distributed? Tell us a little bit about that.
I love the garden because it is very visible. There's a lot of things that you do in nonprofit that you can't see your progress. You inch along and you eventually have the progress. But the garden, we took from day one a totally empty lot with weeds and a boat abandoned on it, and we turned it into this beautiful, beautiful space. And over the period of about 6 years, it is totally transformed. We have gotten funding for sidewalks, which somebody had a wheelchair that could get on the sidewalk. Our workers are able to walk around the garden better because of the sidewalks. We have adaptability where we have bamboo and metal poles upright so that the beans and tomatoes and things like that grow upright. We have tables and shelves that we have pots on so that they don't have to bend over. We try to keep the produce fairly simple. We have tomatoes and peppers and herbs. We had cauliflower and broccoli earlier in the year. beans, green beans, and then a few small things, carrots and potatoes. We used to sell the produce. My workers would go over every Thursday morning and they would harvest, and I'll talk about that in a minute because that's amazing in itself. And then they would come back and they would set up a little produce stand at the agency and people could come by and buy it. I mean, we'd sell it really, really cheap, like 3 tomatoes for $1, but they loved having the stand. This year, because of the pandemic and so many people in need, the garden is on Wheeling Island. We've had many people from the island come over and say, what do I need to do to get some produce? So we decided that instead of selling it, we're giving away 100% of the produce. So every Monday and every Thursday we have produce. We have enough to serve probably 8 to 10 families, and give them some, not a huge amount, but a decent amount. So if there's anybody in the valley that would like some free produce, you can look us up on our website and give us a call and we can put you on the list. Our garden is just a beautiful, beautiful place. Usually sunflowers and pretty flowers are there, and it's a great place to go hang. We've done things such as a reception there. The Edelman family came a couple years ago, and we actually had a string quartet. A lot of you know Mr. Podolsky string quartet playing, and it was just the coolest thing ever. They were playing we had a bean teepee, and the string quartet was in the middle of the bean teepee, and we had Whisk cater it, and the food was amazing. And it was a dedication to our new sign. We had gotten funding for a permanent sign in the garden. A lot of magical things go on there, but probably one of the things that brought tears to my eyes, which you wouldn't even think about, is we have one of our clients who has been totally blind since he's about 9 years old. The only thing he's in his 60s now. He goes bowling and he comes to work and pretty much stays at home with his mom. He's blessed to still have his mom. We had mentioned taking him to the garden and he was petrified. If you could imagine, you're going to have to trust someone to walk you down the sidewalk and then walk you over to the plants. But he found some tasks that he could do. We have a sitting area in the back, but one of our gardeners taught him how to harvest tomatoes by touch. And she would put a little stool down and he would sit down and he would feel the tomatoes. And she taught him to tell the difference between a green tomato and a ripe tomato. And he was so proud of himself, but it was such a huge accomplishment that to most of us would seem so simple. So the garden has done wonders for expanding opportunities for my workers, and they absolutely love it.
It sounds like such rewarding work. Anytime that we can bring joy to someone, I think that is the greatest reward, regardless of the paycheck that we collect or the fringe benefits that we receive from having a job. Being able to bring joy and make a difference in someone's life is really, I believe, what our purpose is here on this earth. So Karen, it has been such a pleasure to have you, but I don't want to leave anything unsaid. What have we missed? Is there anything else that you would like to share or highlight with our audience this evening?
Well, thank you. We've covered a lot and I appreciate this time. And I would just say, my nonprofit is not a fit for everybody. We certainly could use your help and support, and nonprofits are going through a very difficult time right now. Like I mentioned earlier, we're a United Way agency. United Way has about 28, 30 organizations under their umbrella that they help with. They had Night at the Races that they had to cancel. There are all kinds of nonprofits all over this valley. I believe last count, when I read a report, there were about 990 nonprofits in the Northern Panhandle. We would love to have you volunteer for us. If nothing else, if you would like to stop in and see what we do, I can guarantee you if you come on a day that our workshop is open, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Right now we're not doing tours, but let's give us a few months, we start doing tours. Your heart will leave filled. One more mention of the garden, our other worker that goes there, she talks all the time about how valuable and wonderful it is to go to the garden because it reminds her of her childhood. Because when she was little, she was visually impaired and hearing impaired. And she always used to tell her parents and her grandparents, She didn't know why she had to be that way. Other kids were mean to her, and they used to tell her it's not her fault, and she was going to have a good life. And she said every time we take her to the garden, it reminds her of being with her grandfather. So the little things that nonprofits do behind the scene that you might not even see are changing people's lives. So I just encourage you to get involved with a nonprofit of your choice.
Thank you, Karen. That's wonderful. Folks, if you are interested in learning more about the Seeing Hand, please visit their website, seeinghandassociation.com, or find them on Facebook and learn about the things they're doing. Participate in the race if you can. That's a small way that you can help them raise a little bit of money to help them during this time, and follow them to find out when things are coming up. Check out the storefront, purchase some of the items that they have available there. Everything that you do to support this organization stays right here in the Northern Panhandle and helps the individuals who seek out care at the Seeing Hand and seek out services. So perhaps you have an idea of a way that you can support the Seeing Hand. Please reach out to Karen. And Karen, do you have a phone number for your office that you'd like to provide?
Sure. It's 304-232-4810.
Okay. So there you have it, folks. I'm sorry?
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show this evening. And folks, please be sure and leave us a message. Let us know what you thought of this evening's show. And if you have any ideas for upcoming guests, please drop that in the comments below as well. We thank you so much. I wish you much love and sunshine in the coming weeks. God bless you all. And remember, shine your light.